Good morning, everyone. I trust that you are having a great day and enjoying the Access Agile Festival thus far. My name is Andrea Pratt-Smith, and I am the Access Agile Festival ambassador for the beautiful country of the Bahamas. And we have with us today our first presenter of the day, Julie Turney. And the session is being recorded and is going to be a part of the Access Agile Festival archive. We have one thing that we make sure that we have to do at every event is to notify you of the festival's code of conduct that we expect all of our attendees to adhere to. There is a zero tolerance policy against any type of harassment. So we ask that you be on your best behavior. But if there are any instances of harassment, we do have a policy in place where you can notify the organizers or any of the ambassadors via the Access Agile website. There is a link to report any type of harassment, and we will address it in a very timely manner. Now that that's out of the way, let me introduce our speaker for the day. Julie Turney is a heart-centric and people-focused HR professional with over 15 years of experience in the field. She is the brainchild of HR at Heart Consulting, Inc., a coaching firm she created after a second bout of HR burnout to help HR professionals to build their resilience, agility, while providing a safe place to recharge. Julie is also the lead organizer of Disrupt HR Caribbean for Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad. She is the host of HR Sound Off podcast show and author of the book, Confessions of an HR Pro, Stories of Defeat and Triumph. Julie is on a mission to connect with every member of the HR community and is determined to clear up the many misconceptions people have about the HR profession. Welcome, Julie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. Such a pleasure to be here, Andrea, with you and everyone in the room today. Today, we're going to have a conversation about why I believe the future of HR is an agile future, that we as HR professionals need to become more agile in our practices. But before I get started, we have a small room, which means it should be easy for us to communicate and to get to know each other during the session. So please let me know, that Andrea and I know, where you're joining us from today. Which part of the world are you joining us from? Are you an HR professional? And if you are an HR professional, are you currently using any agile methodologies in the way you practice HR? So type away and let us know. I'm going to just put the presentation up and then I'll get started. But I hope that you will join the conversation. Just going to turn it around. Technology. So, as I said, we're talking about why I believe the future of HR is agile. So I see some conversations. UK, Leicester, nice to have you. Bahamas, I'm from Barbados, so nice to see you, Emma. Great. So why do I think it's important for us to have this conversation right now about why we as HR professionals need to become more agile in our HR practices? Look at everything that's happened in the world right now, especially over the last 20 months, and how it has caused us to shift the way that we work as HR practitioners. We've always been a resilient profession. Now we've had to become more agile. We've had to pivot a lot faster. We had to get people home working safely as a result of the global health crisis. We've had to help people deal with the economic downturn that's happening in our countries. We've had to deal with social and political injustices. We're dealing with natural disasters. For us in Barbados, while we've been dealing with the pandemic, we've also been dealing with dengue fever and persons in our population dying from dengue fever. We've also had a volcano that erupted in our sister island, one of our sister islands, St. Vincent, which caused Barbados to be covered in volcanic ash for 3 days. It was pitch black for 3 days. And as it cleared up, we were still dealing with ash for months and months after, which caused a lot of additional respiratory issues. So employers had we had a lot of issues that we had to deal with employees being off sick because they couldn't travel through the ash. So all of these things have caused our the way we operate as HR to have to get more creative and to have to find ways to deal with working with the employees and employers in our organizations to make sure that everyone has a job, to make sure that everyone has a safe place to work, and to make sure that we're providing spaces where people can feel safe to work as well. And as a result of I don't want to just say the pandemic, because there were a lot of things coming together, but the pandemic was the biggest one because it put us on a complete pause. So if you're in HR, you had to figure out, how am I going to get these people home? How am I going to get them to be able to work with the technology that we have available? How do we transform our tech stack so that people have what they need and they feel like they can continue to work continuously without any hiccups? So all of these things we've had to deal with, all of these external factors have affected the way that we work. And so business has called on us to now find ways to be more creative, to be more innovative, to respond to disruption. Leaders are now asking for their leadership teams, including HR, to be more agile, to be able to pivot at any given notice. We have, for a long time in the HR space, talked a lot about what the future of HR looks like and things that we would have projected for ourselves as HR professionals in terms of how we transform the world of work progressively. We've had to do them quicker than we would have before. So if we had a 5-year projection of what the future of HR looked like, a lot of what we had to achieve within that 5-year period became things that we ended up achieving within the last 20 months. And I know that adapting to the needs of your organization is not always easy, just because when we think about the history of HR, for a lot of people, they think that HR is just very administrative, right? We just hire people, fire people, but HR has become extremely dynamic over the last century. When we think about now having to work with employees who are not even in the same country as us. And I know if you're from Europe or you're from North or South America, you've been doing that for a very long time. But from a Caribbean perspective, we have not. And so the gig economy has kind of crept up and jumped at us in the Caribbean. And we're now trying to figure out, how do we engage gig workers? How do we engage our employees who are not working on site on the islands that we live on? How do we deal with the converging generations that are coming into our workspaces now? Because each generation has a different need, but ultimately everybody wants to be in a space where they feel like they belong, right? And everybody wants to know that despite all the constant change that we are experiencing from an external perspective, that HR is going to be able to answer the call and deal with these things immediately. And so how do we do that? How do we make those changes despite the fact that we're not quite ready, despite the fact that we don't know what we don't know? And especially at the start of the pandemic, when the whole world was put to a complete standstill, HR was still very much at the forefront as the first responders of the organization, trying to figure it all out, trying to put all the pieces together as they worked with their executive teams to figure out, how do we put procedures and practices in place that keep everybody engaged, that everyone still feels like they belong? How do we manage things like culture, even though we're not all in the same space? How do we manage creating digital transformations on a low to no budget? How do we do all of these things? And so one of the things that came to light for me in early 2018, late 2017, early 2018, I want to say, was when I first learned about Agile HR. And I came across a community called the Agile HR community, which was based out of between the Netherlands and the UK. Two ladies, one Rena Hellstrom and Natal Dank, came together to create this community to help HR professionals to learn agile ways of working. And it was very fascinating to me. As I continue to work through their curriculum, it truly helped me to understand the importance of being more agile as an HR professional. And it's that information that I'm going to share with you today. So when we look at organizations today, most organizations operate on a waterfall style, right? Versus an agile style, meaning that the highest paid person, their opinion is the one that counts the most. Most people, you don't move through a process or anything like that until, you've got that decision made by that person. And then you start to design a product or a service, you start to develop it, and you're doing it in silos. So by the time you go to develop it and bring it out to your customers, being in this case, your employees, you're getting a lot of mixed feedback. And a lot of times in an HR space, by the time we've released a product or a service to our employees, our organization at wide, the product is either obsolete, people don't like how it works, people are not using it. And so by the time you put all that work in it, probably for a year or so before you released it, that's a year of work gone to waste. What does Agile say? Agile says that we're continuously creating products and services, testing, deploying, and reviewing. And we're launching, and as we launch those products and services, we are getting continuous feedback from our end users. So we're trying to understand what people are thinking, feeling, doing as they interact with our products and services. And then if we have to go back and make changes, we can always go through that loop of reviewing and testing and then deploying again to see how people feel about it. An easy way to describe Agile is I always refer to my cell phone, your cell phone. So a lot of times when you are using your cell phone, you will see an update pop up. It's time to update your phone. And usually once you're seeing that update, it means they've found bugs or they've realized that there were bugs in the last iteration that they released. And so they're saying to you, we've fixed those bugs and we've added a couple of the features based on feedback that we've gotten from our customers. And now we're releasing this new update. And that's the same mentality that we want to adopt from an HR perspective when it comes to being more agile in the way that we work. A lot of times we release a product or a service and we just leave it for people to use. We will explain to them why we've created it. We will explain to them how they're supposed to use it. And then we just leave people to go about their business and make it work. But generally, a lot of times employees end up not using those products or services. For example, think about your employee assistance program, which right now employees would have needed more than ever before because of the current situation with the global health crisis. Our mental health is not the same. But how many employees prior to the pandemic were using your EAP system? Are you looking at that data to see how you could improve your EAP system right now, so that if something, God forbid, happened a couple months from now or even next year that was separate to and in addition to the pandemic, how would you be able to support your employees' mental health? And so it's all about looking at what you have. How can you make it better? How can you release it? And in the Agile world, we always say done is back. Sorry, you're never done. You just keep going. So you want to make sure that you're always testing your products, going and getting feedback, finding out how people are feeling, and then improving your product or service. So where did Agile come from? Well, Agile ways of working started in the technology space when, just as the example I gave you with my phone, developers would have realized they needed a better way of dealing with bugs and different things like that. They couldn't just wait for a product to be so perfect that before they release it. And so they had to find ways of being able to continuously update things. And so they came up with different methodologies to help them. So there are lots of different methodologies towards Agile. So when we talk about Agile for HR, we're talking about applying the Agile mindset and the tools that are used in Agile for HR. Now, that doesn't mean we have to use everything. And then when we're talking about HR for Agile, we're talking about how do we as an HR profession evolve our people practices to support Agile teams, or just to support and help our organization through its transformation process, because we're always looking to grow and develop. Remember, the crisis that we are in right now has forced us to work in ways like never before. And so we seriously have to take on the fact that how do we move faster? How do we move smarter? So what do I mean when I talk about the Agile mindset? Well, for a lot of people, when you think about Agile, you think about these things, right? You think about the Post-it notes. But Agile is more than sticking Post-it notes on a piece of glass or on a wall. When we talk about embracing the Agile mindset, we're talking about how do we move from a space of working in silos to being more collaborative and being more cross-collaborative. How do we work in a way that helps us to create a culture that becomes now a learning culture? How do we move our organization from a space where the highest paid person's opinion is all that matters to a space where everyone's opinion matters? How do we create safe places to work? How do we create spaces where people feel okay to innovate and create? In other words, how do we create psychological safety in the workplace? And so embracing the Agile mindset means embracing all of these. The mindset first, then the values, the principles, practices, tools, and processes that are needed to help us create products and services that our organization will benefit from. So let's look at how the HR model evolves through Agile. So as HR professionals, we have lots of projects that we're working on, right? We're always looking to create new products and services for our organization. And so when you think about a lot of the projects that you're working on right now, sometimes it can seem insurmountable. What Agile ways of working help you to do is to just kind of break everything down. So imagine if you're working on a new onboarding system, if you're working on a new recruiting process, for example, if through your diversity, equity, and inclusion mandates, you have now decided we're going to try to find more creative ways to include hiring people who are neurodiverse. That's a whole shift in mindset, because previously the interview process never accommodated persons with neurodiversities. And so organizations missed out on a huge talent pool when it came to neurodiverse talent. But shifting your mindset on how you interview means you're going to have to find creative ways to interview persons who are neurodiverse. How do you identify if the person is neurodiverse? What questions do you ask that person besides, those out of the box questions that people ask? Do you like Skittles or M&Ms? The interview process has to change. And so you need to become more fluid. How do you do that? So that's a project all in itself. Now, imagine that you're trying to figure out ways of also creating a digital transformation, be it now that you're trying to figure out how do you implement an automated EAP system that tracks how people are feeling in terms of their mental mindset. How do you transfer persons to the necessary service providers in your EAP system, be it therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists? How do you move them along so that they get the support that they need? How do you get them into fitness programs or whatever it may be? How do you automate that entire process and move people along? That's a project in itself. And so when you think about all of these different projects, where do you start? How do you prioritize? Now, using the Scrum methodology is very useful. So what you can see set up here on the screen is when we use Scrum or Kanban, we start with a backlog. What are the projects that need to be achieved? And as a team, how do we work together to figure out what these projects are? And we call each of these a user story, because at the end of the day, we're creating products and services in HR for our end users, which are employees. And so you create all of those user stories, and then you start to put them in your backlog. As you put them in your backlog, you're then going to figure out, well, how do we move these from our backlog to our to-do? How are we going to move these projects forward? One of the ways that I learned that I found very useful was by categorizing each project by fruit. So we would say, is this particular project pomegranate hard or banana easy or grape easy? So if you've ever eaten a pomegranate, you know it's pretty difficult to get it cut and get out all of those little seeds. If you want to create pomegranate juice, or if you just want to eat them as is, it takes a little more effort to get at the pomegranate than it does to just pop a grape in your mouth. And so we started to categorize as a team what we felt was pomegranate hard as a project versus what was grape easy. And if a project was grape easy, it meant, okay, we can get a quick win here. Let's work on this project and move it along. But then how do we deal with the projects that may be pomegranate hard or orange hard or apple hard or banana easy? How do we move all of these projects along? We started to prioritize them, as I said, by categorizing them in terms of fruit and what these projects really look like to us. And because you're talking through it as a team, it makes it easier for you to create trust in your team, to listen to the different voices, be creative and innovative. And then we start to talk about, well, who are we going to need to achieve each of these projects? HR does not work in a silo. If we're looking to purchase a piece of HR tech, we're going to need IT support. We're going to need finance support. And we're probably going to need someone from marketing to help us in terms of how do we put this product and service that we're offering out to our audience, which is our employees. And we might need someone from legal to assist us with the sign off on the contract once we have approved the service provider that we're going to use. So you see those 4 people that you're going to need besides HR. If you are able to bring all of those people in from the get-go and get the necessary buy-in that you need, then you are already starting to work as a cross-functional team. Then finance knows once you found the product that you're looking to purchase, and IT has signed off on it and said, yes, it's going to work in our tech stack. Yes, it's going to be easy to transition to the rest of the workforce. Legal has said the contract looks sound, no issues here. Then you know you're good to go. And then you put marketing on the back burner to say, hey, this is what's coming down the pipeline. We want you to help us work on our internal communication to staff as we roll it out. But another set of people that will be great to have in this process from the get-go is the employees on the ground, getting feedback from them about how they're feeling about the service that you're thinking about implementing. So focus groups are also very helpful here. Now, you then want to plan out how is this project going to go forward. So you start to think about the different stages of the project. You're going to purchase the software. Once the software comes in, IT will upload it. Then you're going to do what you need to do on the back end to get the employees into that system. And then you're going to start to roll it out. How are you going to roll it out? Are you going to roll it out department by department? So then are you going to, which department are you going to start with? Which department are you going to end with? Who is going to be the cheerleader for that department so that you can have someone who is able to, who has that buy-in, will get that initial training with you so that you can then help them to support the rollout through the rest of the team. And you see how it becomes more collaborative. And there's also room in here to test and review, because you always want to know, as the project is moving along, how is IT feeling about implementing it and rolling it out? What's working, what's not working. And then it's always good to do a retrospective at this point too, which is, what are the lessons learned about how we went about this process so far? What could we have done better? So that when you go back to your backlog to look at other projects that you're going to start to work on next, you will be able to take the learnings from those projects and implement them in the backlog for the next set of projects that are coming forward. This way, we're moving a lot quicker than you go off on your own researching to find this product, and then you purchase the product, and then IT implements it, and then it gets rolled out, versus everyone working in a collaborative way, knowing what's coming down the pipeline, knowing how it's going to work, getting the feedback up front, whether or not it will work, how employees are feeling about it up front. And it stops a lot of the confusion, the frustration that people feel when they don't have buy-in at the outset. And so when you're doing all of this, you're creating a working agreement that everyone is saying, yes, we are totally into this. We're totally going to work with this. And we're so happy to be a part of this project. Now, even in agile ways of working, everyone may not come along. But the point is, you've done your part as HR to make sure that everyone is involved in the process. And at least the majority believe this is the best way forward. And you've put in a process of implementing this particular product or service in such a way that people believe, okay, it should run pretty smoothly, and we're okay with how this is working. So we've seen how we can evolve our HR operating model. Now, as I said before, we're coming out of a space of working in silos to working in a space where we are now collaborating across teams. We are looking at how we can co-create and coexist as an organization. We're not working in silos. So if IT brings something to our attention about the software that they are not sure is going to work successfully, then you can sit down and talk about that and think about, how will that work? How will it work if that piece of software is not what you use? And you're doing all of these things in real time. And also taking that human-centric approach, because we all know that previously HR was thought to be that kind of department that was just very process-driven, as I said before. But we strive to become more people-centric, and using agile ways of working definitely helps us to become more people-centric. So as we create these products and services, we are then able to focus in a way and present information in a way that makes us more strategic, that makes us more business focused. We then take on this great hat of being a scientist. That test and deploy approach really works great. You have an idea, you have a thought. Every great product or service starts with an idea. How do you move that idea along? Research is also key. And so taking the time to look at what you think will enhance your employee experience in a product or a service, and looking at the data really helps. The data that you have in-house for how your employees are feeling about a particular situation, whether it's onboarding, whether it's learning and development, do they feel like they're being do they feel like their role is being properly utilized, or the skill set that they bring is being properly utilized in the organization? You're able now to bring a breath of fresh air to all of this in real time by taking your data from inside and also taking data from your competition. What is your competition doing? What are they implementing? How is it working for them? And then looking ultimately at what you're trying to achieve is a great way for you to become more agile as an HR professional. And so when we think about being evidence-based versus going to our leadership on a feeling, going to our leadership just without the necessary data, and then being frustrated because we're not getting the support that we need, this helps us to eliminate a lot of that. So we want to become more evidence-based. HR can become scientists. So when it comes to redesigning HR services, what can we redesign? Well, as I mentioned before, as I talked about that backlog, our Kanban board, our user stories come out of that. What is the user experience of our workforce right now when it comes to our recruitment process, when it comes to our onboarding process, when it comes to our benefits and rewards programs, when it comes to how we deal with mental health and well-being, when it comes to our technology from an HR perspective, how do people feel about using the tech that we have implemented in our organization? How easy is it for people to access our policies? How easy is it for people to access us as HR if they need to? And so when we think about all of these things, our objective as HR is that we want to help create safe places for people to work, where people feel like they can do great things. We want to make people awesome. We want to help people when they are going through our organization to have the best experience possible. And so it's important for us as HR professionals to ensure that our reward and recognition programs, our performance management systems, and our recruitment and career development systems are not providing blockers for people to move through the system. People should feel like as they move through the system, it's clear, it's transparent. They should enjoy moving and working with us. They should enjoy seeing themselves develop and grow in the organization. And that only happens if we as HR take a step back for a moment and think about what's working, what's not, what isn't working, how do we put things in place to improve our agility as HR and support the business as they try to become a more agile organization. So are our processes over-engineered? Well, let's start taking a look at them now. This is a great time for us to start looking at a lot of the processes that we have in our organization as HR and saying what's working and what's not working. Let's get the feedback from our employees. Let's get the feedback from our leadership about what they think and feel about these things. And then if we need to make changes, let's take these projects to the drawing board. Let's get everyone involved. And then let's create great products and services where there's no red tape. Remove all the bureaucracy, we get rid of all of the excess waste in the processes, and we move people through them as seamlessly as possible so that we can create great places to work. So what is the way forward for us as an HR profession when it comes to being more agile? First and foremost, we want to make sure that employees do not feel as though they cannot be great at work. We want to make people awesome. In order for that to happen, it means we have to be able to listen. We should understand the pulse of the people in our workforce. And then we want to make sure that when we are in a space where we are delivering products and services continuously. That does not mean that we're always looking to create new products, but we're always looking at the ones that exist. And we're looking to see if they still are fit for purpose. We're looking to see if there are ways that we can improve them. If the process is not running as seamless as it could, how could we make it better? And we're always ultimately looking to create a safe space for people to work. So we want to create psychological safety. Are we helping our managers and our leaders in our organizations to do that? Are we creating training programs where our leaders feel like they have the opportunity to learn how to take on the coaching mindset? How do we do that? And then we want to be able to learn as quickly as possible and experiment as much as we can. In Agile, we say fail fast and move on. One thing that we struggle to embrace as HR professionals is failure. Failure for most of us means we're the worst, like we suck. But that's not true. If we fail fast and we learn from that, and we're able to create something that people really enjoy and benefit from, then it means that as we failed, we learned something. And so failure means learning. To succeed, we gotta fail. And we need to be okay with that as HR. So when we think about agile ways of working and agile transformation in our organizations, we don't want to just make an agile transformation for the sake of making an agile transformation. We don't want to just be an agile HR practitioner for the sake of being an agile HR practitioner. When we think about making an agile transformation for ourselves as a profession and for our organization, we want to make sure that we are doing it for the right reasons. As I said before, there are lots of different ways to work in the agile space. Some people use Scrum, some people use Kanban, some people use SAFe. There are lots of different methodologies when it comes to agile. The first important thing you want to ask yourself is, why do we need to make this transformation? How do I make this transformation, and what do I use? The great thing about Agile and the Agile space is that there are lots of different ways to work through it, and you can take whatever you need to make sure that you are creating the best experience as possible. You don't have to stick to it to the letter. Take what you need, which is Agile for HR, so that you can now create great products and services and apply HR for Agile. You want to also acknowledge any different realities that are happening in your space, right? Always get buy-in from your leadership. Always engage your employees and get feedback, okay? You want to make sure that you are always looking to create mindset and a culture that leads to people feeling like they are respected, that their thoughts are being heard, and that ultimately people feel that they belong. Agile transformations are most effective when we are creating team synergies. And as I mentioned before, HR doesn't work in silos, or we shouldn't be working in silos. We should be in a space where we are working to support our organization at every level, which means we should be always looking to get support from whoever we need in order to help us achieve our objective. Cross collaboration is key, and giving everyone a sense of having buy-in from the get-go creates a successful transformation, whatever it is that you are trying to achieve. So when we think about agile ways of working, the highest paid person's opinion should not be the only opinion that matters. We want no more hippo decisions being made in our organization. Everyone should feel as though they have a say. One of the great things about my discovery and my journey through Agile is when I came across the Agile HR Manifesto. The Agile HR Manifesto is basically the foundation of the practices of an Agile HR practitioner. And I just wanted to share a few of those practices with you. The first and very most important one for me is putting people over process. As I said before, HR has evolved tremendously, but we still have a lot of work to do. There are still a lot of HR professionals who are very paper-driven or very process-driven versus being people-driven. When we help our organizations to create great products and services and create great people experiences, we get trust, we get loyalty, we get creativity, we get innovation, and all of those things lead to great products and services, which leads to great customer experiences, which leads to customer loyalty, which leads to increased profits. And so we always want to make sure as HR that we are striving to become more people-focused over process-focused. Agile ways of working help us to work at speed, help us to work at a pace that we never did before, so that we can become more people-focused. Next is working prototypes over excessive documentation. So the policies that we write and being super policy heavy, we want to see a change or an evolution in this. We want to be able to create organizations where we trust our people to do the right thing at every level in the organization. And so we want to move away from the excessive documentation and being people who are hiding behind policies. We want to respond to change rather than follow a plan. We want to be more responsive, more proactive. We've been very reactive, but we want to be more proactive. If this whole global health crisis has taught us anything, is the importance of, for us as HR, to be very proactive and think about what's going to happen next and how we're going to help our organizations move forward. Next is customer collaboration over rigid contracts. We want to make sure that we are collaborating with our key stakeholders, with everyone in the organization who has a say in a product or a service that we're looking to implement. We want to make sure that we're collaborating, listening to the thoughts and hearing what people are thinking and feeling. And that's where our design thinking comes in a lot more. And so these are just a few key things that I wanted to mention with regards to the Agile HR Manifesto and why I think it's important for us to really take a read of that. If you Google Agile HR Manifesto, you'll see the entire manifesto, and take a read of it and just take a think for yourself, like, is this who I am as an HR professional? And if it's not, what are the things that I could do to improve how I work as an HR professional to become more agile and more people-centric? Now, I always like to share technology. I am a huge tech geek, and I always love to share pieces of technology that I have found useful as an Agile HR practitioner with audiences, whoever I speak to, so that you can go check them out if you're not using them already. But remember, we talked about different ways of setting up our projects. And so besides using our handy dandy post-its, there are other ways that we can get creative and share products within our teams. And so there are two pieces of software that I love to use. The first one is Asana, and the second one is Trello. And both of these are project management platforms. But what I love about them is that you can create your boards in these pieces of software. And as you create these boards, you can assign members of your team to each of the projects that you have created. You can see in real time how they are progressing with the projects. Everyone will have their own login. Everyone is able to work in this space, but you can also see who on your team is productive, who's not being productive. You can also use this during your retrospectives so that you can discuss the work at hand and always be in a space to support your team members on where they're getting blocked from moving along in the process and how you can support them to clear those blockers. The other one, as I said, is Trello. I love Trello, but Asana also has its advantages as well. One of the things that I love about Trello is the ability to be able to move, physically drag these different boards along, and you can create as many boards as you want. Both of these pieces of software are free. They do have free versions, and they also have payable versions where you can get more out of them. Again, as I talked about cross collaboration in teams, mind mapping and sharing your thoughts, brainstorming. Another great piece of software that I have used in the past is Mymeister. That's a really good one where you can work in teams and share your thoughts in real time. And these are really great pieces of tech, especially if you're working in teams where you are not all in the same space, but you can still cross collaborate over Zoom. I also want to share a couple of resources with you in terms of books. So top 3 books for me right now, Agile HR by Natal Dank and Rena Hellstrom. This is a really great book on how you can deliver value at work through using Agile HR methodologies. The next one is Agile People by Pia Maria Thorin. This book, oh my goodness, I read this book at least once a year, because there's so many things in this book that you can apply just to everyday ways of working as an HR professional, and I love it. I absolutely love this book. And then the last one is The Agile Leader by Simon Hayward, another great book on how you can create an agile business in a digital age. It's such a powerful book. They're all very short reads, and you don't have to read them in any specific order, but I hope that you will find these resources useful. And the slides that I shared with you today came from this poster, which is Agile HR in a nutshell, which is created by Dandy People. So if you go to dandypeople.com, you can actually download this entire poster for free. And they have a lot of other posters in there that relate to agile ways of working and understanding Agile. I hope that you found this information that I shared with you today useful. My name is Julie Turney, as I said before, and this is where you can find me. I am on LinkedIn. I actually live on LinkedIn. So if you reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, I am there. We can connect. Let's connect. And you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm also on TikTok as your HR for HR coach, where I share lots of information with my audience as it relates to how I support HR professionals and help them to develop and grow in their careers. My company is HR at Heart. So you can find me at HR at Heart, or you can find me at Disrupt HR Caribbean, or my podcast show, which is the HR Sound Off podcast show, where I talk to HR professionals about how we can demystify the many misconceptions that people have about the HR profession. I also wrote a book. It is called Confessions of an HR Pro, Stories of Defeat and Triumph, which is right here. And it's available on Amazon if you'd like to take a read of it. And it also has a workbook and journal, which just helps you navigate your HR career and learn to do different things like brain dumping, setting goals, retrospecting your goals, and stuff like that. So I hope that you would enjoy that. But that's it for my presentation today. I hope you found it useful. And if we have time for some questions, Andrea?
Yes, thank you,
I'll stop
Julie.
sharing.
So thank you, Julie, so much for an awesome presentation. It was very informative and you packed a lot into that 50 minutes. So we have 10 more minutes for questions. I saw where Ruth Bowe dropped a question in the chat, but she also said she had to leave for another session. She asked, what tips do you have to make that transition to people over process happen faster, especially when they have been doing it that way for so long?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because that behavior is pretty much ingrained in you, right? And so it's a steady process. But one of the things that I always recommend to people is learn from other people who have been process driven, who are now becoming more people driven. And there are a lot of people who are sharing their stories and their examples, especially on like places like LinkedIn. One person I know for sure is a lady by the name of Tracy Sponenberg. She talks a lot about being process driven and how she's become more people driven by learning from people who are people driven. So that's one. The other way too is by recognizing that it's something within you that needs to change. And if you need support to get to change that, I would recommend coaching and finding someone that can help you and support you in that journey of becoming more people driven. And I would also say, like, reading or listening, whatever way that you are able to learn, do that. So for me, I like to listen to podcasts and I like TED Talks. So I would find videos or podcast episodes around those topics and listen and learn from other people's experiences. And that helps me to kind of retrospect a bit deeper about how steps that I can take to becoming more people driven over process driven. So I would say that would be one. I see Alex asks, how do you build a recruitment process from scratch in a small company of 100 people? Okay, so I take it that you're building this process, you've never had a recruitment process before. Again, I would say in an agile way, when it comes to building your recruitment processes, again, get advice, get support. Always look externally. The great thing about HR is that there's so many wonderful people in the space, in every part of our profession. Talent acquisition, they come in spades. There's so many people. And depending on what part of the world you are, I would say, Katrina Collier is based in the UK. She has a book called The Robot Proof Recruiter. That book is absolutely amazing, and that talks about how we can become more human-centric in our recruitment processes. People like to throw tech at everything, but if you are not a recruitment expert, then always seek support from a recruiter. Work with recruiting firms. If your company does not give you budget to work with a recruiting firm, then try to build a network of recruiters, friends in the recruitment space to work with and get advice from. The great thing about the HR space now is that so much more of us are opening up and sharing our stories and sharing our experiences. So find those spaces and that will help you to build your recruitment process. Ultimately, hard and fast, you could Google a recruitment process, but if you want lived experience and practices and recommendations for how you can create a great recruitment process from scratch, I would say put yourself in the circles where people are offering that advice. On LinkedIn right now, you have people like Andy Storch, who has the talent, he has a talent development. He has a talent development group, Andy Storch. Then you have Mike name is not coming to me right now. But there's the Talent Magnet Institute out of the US as well. And they also help with sourcing. But these people also have resources on their websites that share recruitment tips. They have ebooks and different things like that. So you can download those as well and read through those and get support that way as well. So there are lots of different ways that you could tackle it if you're on a low to no budget. But if you have some budget, then I would recommend implementing a system that will help you with recruiting. So a program like Bamboo HR or Workday. Like your organization is small, Workday is a bit more for enterprise. So I would say like Bamboo HR is a great one. Hibob, HIBOB, that's another good one. But these systems are HRIS systems, yes, but they also have recruiting systems built within them. So like Bamboo HR, you can go and you can put the job on Bamboo HR, stick the vacancy in there, and you can put it to market, and it usually goes through all the major ones like Indeed, LinkedIn, and all of those different ones, and you'll get applications coming in directly through Bamboo HR. You can then shortlist in Bamboo HR and connect with the candidates directly in there. And you can also recruit end-to-end in Bamboo HR. You can start the process in Bamboo HR and end the process in Bamboo HR, and onboard, pre-board and onboard in Bamboo HR, all at the same time. Send the person the contract, everything from Bamboo HR. And that will be the quickest win. Is to find that HRIS system from end to end that eliminates you having to do all that stuff. And I am also a partner of Bamboo HR. So quick plug to them. And that also, so like if you need any additional support, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to share some more information with you on that, Alex, if you need it.
Yes, thank you, Julie, for your response, which is very in-depth. So
You're
I'm
welcome.
sure that Alex got a wealth of information, and he will reach out, he or she will reach out to you on LinkedIn to follow up. We have 3 minutes remaining in this session. Does anyone else have any other questions? We do have an event at 11 o'clock that we need to rush to, but we'll entertain a few more questions if you have them. If not, we'll conclude the session.
Yeah, 3 minutes is good for people to transition on. I hope that you found the information useful. And like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I wish you all the best in your journeys as you go your way through your HR careers, and supporting your businesses. Continue to be great, do great things, and become more agile and grow.
Yes, thank you so much, Julie, for those final statements. This will conclude our session. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Access Agile Festival archive. So if you want to go back and review it, I know Julie went through so much information in this hour, so it may be useful to you to go back and review the recording again. It will be available. And we thank you so much for joining our event. Our next event with Simone Bow starts in 2 minutes. So we're heading over to our next session. Thank you so much for joining the Bahamas. And we really enjoyed you being here with us. Thank you, Julie, so much.
Welcome.